In the future, I envisage a piece of technology that will allow you to superimpose yourself in any given appropriate media. For example, a film where you get to play Thor. For this to happen, for it to look real and not like some poorly designed meme, I imagine that through some sort of AI technology, data will be collected through photos, recordings, footage of you that will be taken in your home as you go about your daily routine. I imagine that in the future, it's a 1984/Truman Show situation where there are cameras and microphones everywhere, except in order to be able to superimpose yourself, and just as phones are a necessity in our lives in order to stay on the grid, you need the cameras and microphones there. So you voluntarily allow this to be a part of your life. What's the purpose of this? Well, to answer that, I should probably explain where this idea came from. After looking through my phone and feeling a bit ashamed at all the selfies I had recently taken of myself in order to find the one to post to social media so I can get likes, follows, feel satisfied in knowing that my appearance has been acknowledged as something to be liked, I realized we are a very self-obsessed bunch.
Fair to say, we as a species are self-obsessed. We measure our followers, our likes, our retweets. We go on Google Earth, what do we look at? Our house. FaceTime. We're speaking to someone else, what are we looking at? Our own face. Hello, mother.
However, after thinking about it a bit more, I don't necessarily think we're self-obsessed, and I think it was quite cynical of me to think so. Instead, I believe this escapism in technology is man's desire to live a life more grandiose than it really is in reality. I believe that this part of history that's taking place, even with all its new technologies, tells the same story as the ones previous and helps to prove that we are so unapologetically human. Adorno's culture industry theory argued that mass media has denied us our autonomy, acting as a tool in order for the elite to keep us in line and obedient. Adorno's theory on art can be derived from his theory on aesthetics, which suggests that good art, or rather art that is not made within a capitalist agenda, is autonomous, and as society became ever less a human one, due to all the popular culture I'm gathering, this autonomy was shattered. I don't think Adorno is right or wrong, but he does bring up some very important points, and his arguments have helped inform the work of critical theorists working towards better defining aesthetics, semiotics, and affect, and their role, function, and place within society. When arguing about art and its purpose, it'd be difficult not to address the way in which art can help us answer questions about ourselves. We are unapologetically human, and as such, we have flaws and insecurities that we constantly try to manage and better define through music, fashion, taking selfies, which could very well be argued to be photography, makeup, and through fiction and film, TV, books. If we consider art in this light, art is a teacher, art is a nurturer. However, if we consider Adorno's comments that art's escape is just a way to undermine our autonomy, then a case can be made that this escapism is reductive in our interactions with art. Adorno argued that popular culture, such as films, TV, radio, and music, were used to restrain and weaken the overworked, lower-class individuals from rebellion. Amusement under late capitalism is the prolongation of work. It is sought after as an escape from the mechanized work process, and to recruit strength in order to be able to cope with it again. What happens at work, in the factory, or in the office can only be escaped from by approximation to it in one's leisure time. There's a lot of big words there, and I don't think I got them all right. If we take this argument into the 21st century, it is easier to point the finger at video games rather than film, TV, and music, especially with all the scholarly material that positively supports the art he criticized. Video games are one of the closest contextual elements I can get to my idea. Reminder, my technology has the ability to superimpose yourself into a piece of media. The big difference is, in my piece of technology, you don't have to do any of the work, and so you don't control the narrative. I mean, it could be argued that video games only afford the player the necessities to play within their world. And hey, we're back to Adorno again, but back to the point. In video games, you're able to create an avatar, go about the world as you please, complete quests, make decisions that affect your performance in the game. But my technology places you in the world and lets you watch yourself make decisions you wouldn't normally make. Video games have been described as a modern sort of catharsis, and I think since they bear similarities, my technology could demonstrate a new means of catharsis. Catharsis has often been used in academia, in particular film studies, when discussing the effect achieved in audiences, and they are often informed by Aristotle's philosophy of tragedy. Although it is difficult to explain what Aristotle means by catharsis, as evident by the long history of scholars who have attempted to do so, it is essentially when you release strong and/or repressed emotions through something like art or throwing a plate at a wall or something. To elaborate, in the philosophy of tragedy, Aristotle essentially argues that the tragedy that we see in art relieves us of fear, which helps us ensure that we do not react extravagantly to events in real life that are not really frightening at all. Tragedy is surprisingly really hard to say a lot of times. Tragedy just sounds like a sound or a noise. If we continue on this trail of escape, it could be argued that my technology does the hard yards for you. You don't need to empathize or write your fan fiction blog post. It's all there. No imagination required. That would, of course, have to be the slogan. And you might think I'm mocking my own idea, and while I am, I need to, because I need to look at all the angles in order to better understand it, in order to know its potential. Imagine how advertising would change, since accepting website cookies would allow them a lot more data. There are positives and negatives to this, because imagine shopping online, but instead of seeing a model, you saw you instead, wearing those jeans that you thought wouldn't look good on you. In that instance, Stuart Hall's representation theory would possibly be an argument for my idea. However, if only white people saw themselves in films, well, we're back to where we started and possibly even further apart. Staying on the subject of film, it would be interesting to know the difference between a film made for this type of AI by companies like Universal or the Marvel franchise compared to, say, indie films or avant-garde films. I imagine that Marvel would want to keep their audiences happy, provide them with the superhero experience, whereas avant-garde films, well, they'd want to make you feel very uncomfortable and probably try to teach you something. There are already similar forms of my technology, such as virtual reality or the metaverse. If we go back to video games and films, the experience achieved in those mediums may be akin to my technology. I mean, you could argue that intertextuality in film is just a way to relieve the glorious moments of cinema. In video games, you get to be the mafia boss, Lara Croft, God even. Additionally, the avatars you make in video games are getting closer and closer to looking exactly like the player. I imagine that the people who are most likely to use my technology will be somewhere between 20 to 40, but let's be real. As people under the age of 20 grew up synchronously with an ever-evolving technological landscape, young teens are more adept at using new technologies than older generations are. There is also the possibility that the technology could be used in rehabilitation, which poses new questions surrounding the ethical nature of it. As virtual reality, the metaverse, etc., begin to be introduced in our lives, I think we should start considering the ethical and moral implications. As Neil Postman advised,
technology giveth and technology taketh away. If we understand that tale, then with every new technology, we would have to ask, what will it give us and what will it take?
I hope my technology will never be made. The initial idea came from me joking about self-obsession through selfies, and in that case, was more of a piece of satire than an idea. But with the strides developers are making in virtual reality and the increasing growth in fandoms that produce fan fiction, buy merchandise, and create online communities that help keep particular parts of popular culture alive, I mean, maybe it's only a matter of time.